All right, folks. Here's a quick run through of the 20-point project. Now, so far we've covered if statements, switch statements, compound if, nested ifs, random number generation. And we're going to see a little bit of all of that in this project. Now here is how it's going to work. You create a project that's going to randomly choose a math problem and ask you to solve it. You type in the answer, it tells you if you're right or wrong. Now, here's the basics for how it's going to work. So the program will randomly pick two numbers, 0 through 9. If you remember, and that's going to do that twice. So it'll pick it once, and then they'll have another number, number 1, number 2, random number 0 to 9, random number 0 to 9. Then, and this is the part that usually gives people some issues, but we're going to choose between addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Now, how I want you to do that is you're going to use a random number generator that picks 0, 1, or 2. So if I were to multiply by, math.random times 3, I would get 0, 1, or 2. Now, once you have all these numbers picked, and that's the first thing that's going to happen, these numbers will be picked. Then you need some if statements. So if that random number is 0, for example, well, then it should display this on the screen. What is 5 plus 5? Now, a lot of people will have an issue with this. Let me just pull up older program here. If I were to say, oh, that didn't. Oh, I'm not in the main. That's why. Okay, there we go. So if I were to just say, what is, and I'm trying to display a variable. Let's say I have int num1 equals 5 and int num2 equals 5, right? And I want to display what is 5 plus 5. So what a lot of people will do is num1 plus num2. And they'll be like, well, that doesn't work if I add that little plus here. And then they'll run it. What is 55? And they're like, well, that's not doing what I think it should be doing. Then they'll come in and they will throw in some parentheses. And then what you'll get is the answer. 5 plus 5 is 10. But what we want to display is that plus sign. So what I want to do is actually something akin to this. What is number 1 plus number 2? And that can be a multiplication sign, which is the star. It can be a minus sign, which is minus. There's really not much you have to do there to change that. But we need an if statement or a switch statement. 0, that would display a plus. 1, it would be a minus. 2, it would be multiplication. Notice I did not add division because 0 is one of the possible choices, and you can't divide by 0. If you wanted to add division, that might be a little extra thing you could do on the side. Just make this 1 to 10 or something, and then you could toss in division. That would be 0, 1, 2, 3, for example. But it's simple math program you could give to like a kid to practice with. So we go down the list. It's going to ask us which of these, and then we're going to type in the answer. Then it has to check, is our answer the correct answer? So let's say the easiest way to do this is probably the longest way. You just have some if statements. If 0 is chosen, you display this on the screen. You have user input. You're going to have a variable that gives you that total. What is 5 plus 5? It's going to, total is 5 plus 5 is 10. Did you type in 10? If you did, yes. If you didn't, then, you're wrong. That sort of thing. Now, the trick here I would tell everybody to do is to focus on the plus first. Now, you can go ahead and put if, 0, if 1, if 2, and then just say subtraction, multiplication, but get the plus portion fleshed out first, where you're typing in the answers and all that. If you get that plus version working, it's the exact same thing for the subtraction, for the multiplication. The only difference is you're changing a sign. That is the only difference between these three parts, these three ifs here, however you want to write them. So if you can get that first part done, then you're good to go for the rest. And the big thing about a programming assignment or programming assignments in general, don't look at the whole project and freak out. I probably mentioned this a few times, but look at the first part you have to do, the first thing you have to do, any project you're doing. It doesn't matter whether it's for a programming class or any class whatsoever. In this, what is the first thing we have to do? Well, I need to have some random numbers that give me 0 through 9. Do that. Forget about everything else. Do that small thing first. Then move on to the next little thing on the list. I have to get a random number that gets 0, 1, or 2. Do that. What's the next thing? Well, there's going to be an if statement. If that third random number that we picked, that operator number, is 0, write that if statement there. Inside that, display this message here. And remember, and headset, there we go. And again, it's not going to display what is 5 plus 5. It's going to display whatever these numbers happen to be. That's another common thing people do at the beginning sometimes. They'll system that out to print line. What is 5 plus 5? It's not going to be 5 plus 5 every time. The point is it's going to be random. It could be 9 plus 9. It could be 9 plus 2. It could be 0 plus 0. Whatever the random numbers are chosen, that's what it should display. So it displays it, and then you type in the answer. And like I said, there's a couple of ways to do this. There's some that are shorter than others. There's some that are longer. I'm not really worried about which path you take as long as the path you take works for now. We could talk about, things that are a little more efficient or things that are longer later when we get to the solution. But for now, again, focus on that first part. Once you get that first part, the rest of these just kind of fall into place. And this is roughly what it will look like. It's just a couple of lines are going to be printed on the screen. That's basically it. It runs, what is 4 times 3? You type in a number, and then it says you're right or you're wrong. Basically, that's it. Now, if you have any questions or anything, you can, leave comments down below. You can message me directly, of course. Should be fairly simple if you've gone through all the other videos. For the most part, we've gone through random number generation and how that works. We've done if statements, and this right here does not require compound ifs. It just, really just requires basic if else or switch statements. You could use a combination of both. Could use some nested ifs, I guess, depending on how it's written. But it's nothing dramatic. It's just a combination of the random number generations and the ifs for the most part. Again, questions, feel free to ask. If not, I'll see you next time.